Welcome back, Visionary Woman. This week, we're going back into that two-part series where I talk about mistakes that business owners make because they don't have a consultant and the kind of structural issues that are going to cause really big obstacles later on. That if you're a solo working by yourself, you might not even be having these things an awareness of them at all, and they can cause really big drama later on. I mentioned the last time that I talked about this, the reason I wanted to do this series is to show you all of the kind of other things that I do as a business consultant that aren't just about social media and marketing, because that's a big part of it, but it's definitely not all of it. And I'm not just giving you tips on social media. I'm helping you structure a multiple six-figure business that is going to pay you and run in a way that doesn't burn you out for many years to come. And there's a lot that's involved in that isn't shiny and sexy and cute like social media is. So I wanted to give you some examples and also to let you know, don't do these things. If you're doing these things, stop doing them, fix them, clean them up, because you shouldn't be doing them. And all of these things are not necessarily things that just an everyday business owner has an awareness of or knows. And it's really tricky because as a business owner, it's not your job to be a business consultant, right? So it's not necessarily your job to know all of these things, but it is your job to get the support that you require in order to learn the things that you need to know. And that's where I come in. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I really do need to get some support, I have been doing this all on my own for a long time, that's beautiful and good on you, but you deserve to have support. You deserve to have someone in your team. You deserve to have someone in the wings who's really vouching for you and pushing you along and wishing the best things for you and your business, and really having a guiding light to your success and having someone to celebrate your success with you as well. So my first point of a big mistake that business owners make is something that comes from my own experience. I'm a 3-5 generator. So basically, my whole point of life is to make mistakes and then go through it myself and tell everyone not to go through them and save other people from making the same mistakes or experimenting with things that I've already experimented with. That's basically the role of the 3-5 generator. So the reason I'm telling you these things is not to tell you off if you're doing them, but to hopefully stop anyone from going through the same problems and issues that I've had. So the first one is really personal to me and has probably been the key source of my negative mental health in the last 3 years. And I could say that if I didn't have stoicism, if I wasn't as grounded and resilient as I am, I think this probably would have given me a mental breakdown. And I was close to a mental breakdown. It caused so much stress and anxiety that I couldn't eat for a long time and caused a lot of issues with that. And I was really unhealthy for a while there because of it. So, what is it? The problem is staying a sole trader or sole practitioner in some countries for much longer than you should be, rather than incorporating. Now, I'm not telling that you shouldn't do this or you should do this. You need to speak to an accountant about it to find out what's relevant for your business. But myself, I stayed a sole trader for way too long. Now, that wasn't my fault. In 2021, I asked my accountant to make my business a company. He said no. Then what happened was he got very busy, he got promoted, he got a lot of clients, and he then wasn't kind of keeping up with the various businesses that he was managing. And a couple of years later, I get a call basically being like, shit, you need to incorporate. And even after that, it took another 6 months for them to actually do it for me, because incorporating a business, I don't think is something that you should do yourself. I think you should hire someone to do it. But The roll-on effect of that not happening in 2021 when I asked for it to happen, a huge lesson in this was I didn't want to hassle him. And for good or for worse, I will hassle the shit out of anyone I'm paying from now on, because I will never put myself in that situation again because I'm trying to not look annoying. The flow and effect of that was basically me pretty much owing almost six figures in tax debt, personal tax debt. So my personal tax return at the end of the year was like, one year it was like 40 and the next year it was like 60 something. And I then completely knuckled down and I paid it off in 14 months. Now you might be like, oh, you earn heaps of money. That wouldn't be that hard. No, I don't. I have a salary. I pay myself a particular salary purely for that reason, to avoid a huge tax bill. So I don't pay myself that much. A lot of money stays in my company. So I've, for the last 14 months, been the most frugal, penny pinching, I call it magnetic bootstrapping person that you could ever imagine. And I got that paid off. Now, most people would just go on a payment plan and not worry about it. I'm very allergic to debt. So it was probably more stressful for me because I don't have any other big debts and I've never had credit cards. I had student loans, but that's it. So really 14 months, maybe the whole thing wasn't extremely stressful, but a lot of it was. I was extremely stressed. I was extremely worried. I was going back through my figures all the time and trying to work out how to do it and trying to project into the future how to get myself out of the situation. And when I got the initial bill in my head, I was like, I'm going to be really fucked for 3 years. And lo and behold, I just went so hard and I got it done. And I think I'm in my first month of having it fully paid off and therefore actually getting my actual salary, which was so nice. And so the moral of the story is, do not get yourself in that situation. Do not, it's another part of it is like making sure that you have really good contractors in your business. I stayed with that accountant for way longer than I should have because I was like, oh, it's so much effort to get another one. And I don't want to hurt his feelings, which is just like, Jesus Christ. And he was very shocked when I let him go. But I don't think he could possibly have understood how much of a harrowing experience I was put in because of that inaction for something that I was paying and thought was being looked after. And what I'm trying to say here is if you're making a lot of money as a sole trader, you're going to be getting taxed a lot. And it is worthwhile discussing with your accountant whether that's a situation that you want to stay in. Some of us might want to, whatever, it's up to you, but you probably don't realize that the difference that the other structures of a business and the other options makes for you. And I'm asking you to please do that homework and find that out. And don't not take action because you don't have the information. And there's a really simple ways to assess it. And that's something that we do in coaching. I could just say straight away, you really should talk to your accountant about this. And sometimes it's not appropriate. So that's my first one for today. And it's very heartfelt. And I think I always like to say, I think anyone would be very stressed at getting that bill, but it was a really intense situation. And I'm really glad that I was able to move forward. And I see all these people on TikTok being like, I paid off $40,000 in 2 years and making a TikTok account about it. And I'm like, mate, you don't even know. That's not even touching the sides of what we did here. So if anyone wants any budgeting advice, 70% of my income for the last 14 months was going to paying debt and investing as well. So I was running a very tight ship, and that's something that I can talk about on here if anyone wants it. So send me a message if you do want to know, like, how am I managing that kind of stuff, especially from the perspective of someone who's never been good with money and never had any education on it at all, and also saw themselves as a creative and therefore shouldn't be worrying about money or didn't need to, or there was something weird about it. It's been a big learning curve to get that really in check. All right. The next layer and the next mistake is linked and also important, and that is spending tons of money on different contractors or services that aren't needed. So I've seen people do this with going on a retainer with a graphic designer that they definitely don't need, and the retainer was way more than it was worth. I've seen people having website designers charging them exorbitant fees and taking 2 days to do something that would genuinely take 3 minutes. I've seen people hiring social media managers when they just definitely shouldn't be. And there's lots of other hacks and automations and things that we can use to get what they wanted out of the social media manager rather than paying that amount. And unless you have a lot of business acumen, you don't know where your priorities should be and therefore where you should be spending money at different stages in your business. And having a consultant, that's someone who can tell you that and be like, I think I've had this conversation in the last 24 hours, someone being like, should I get a VA? And me being like, you should get a VA, but not for the next 3 months because your business is too disorganized. And if you got a VA right now, it would be an absolute nightmare schmozzle, and you would spend 3 weeks delegating something that you could delegate in an hour if you were organized. And those are the kind of things that people just don't know when they're doing it on their own. And the other piece, which is part of this, is just in general getting ripped off by contractors. So that's something where my clients will tell me how much they spent or how much they were charged. And I can be like, no, that's 4 or 5 times the industry standard. And it does piss me off a lot. It happens to me as well. People are just trying to get as much as they can out of you and they don't care. And I think sometimes if you seem a bit green in business, people will try to rip you off until you call them out about it. And I've been ripped off because people have seen on my social media how much I earn and therefore been like, I can just give her a really shit service and charge her heaps of money because she has money. And I won't stand for that. I won't stick around. Sorry, goodbye. That's not okay. Just because I earn that much doesn't mean I deserve to be ripped off. So that's another piece to that puzzle. And lastly, which is similar to what I talked about in the first part of this series, is in general, doing things that are illegal or maybe not illegal, but against regulation that they could be financially penalized for without realizing they are. I see a lot of people doing a lot of things which are actually illegal or against discrimination law, that are unfair terms in contracts, like all this kind of stuff. I've also seen people trying to get me to coach them to sell products that aren't legally sold in that country. And it's just like sometimes they're doing it because they're a cowboy and they're dodgy. And sometimes they do it because they genuinely don't realize that what they're doing is not allowed. And that is something that you don't want to continue doing and run a business for years doing that without realizing. So these are all things like maybe they feel boring, but I think they're like really important. Like I'm a Capricorn, I'm Capricorn Taurus, I've got a lot of earth in me. It's essential for me to bring you back down to earth sometimes and connect you with reality and logic and ensure that you're not in a fantasy land where you're doing this stuff thinking that it's okay. So that's my 2-part of like mistakes that business owners are making because they don't have someone with enough business knowledge to stop them from doing it. If you got anything from this episode or if you liked it, please send me a message. Please let me know. Please leave a review. Please rate. Please share. And if you want me to do more of these episodes, let me know as well. I'll be back in your ears next week.